guys. Let me know if you can hear me okay. We'll start a bit slow today just to let a couple of people catch up. We're gonna keep going with the Cluedo characters for those of you who were joined in for the last one. I had an issue during the week. I was cleaning out my hard drives because I ordered a new computer today, fancy new computer, and I was cleaning out my hard drive and I accidentally permanently deleted about it was something like 250 gigs worth of it was the folder with all of my artwork in it, all the sculpts, drawings, everything, reference, everything. I deleted all of it, so I had to recover that, and I recovered most of it, but some of them came back corrupted, so I lost some of the stuff, and I lost the sculpt that I did last week, the progress that we made last week. So I redid what we did last week and left it there. There is some differences now. I've broken up the head. Where I've broken up the head, I've just, refined a couple of little pieces, but nothing. I haven't done anything past what I was explaining last week, so there's nothing. None of this step. I haven't gone any further in terms of the steps there. So there's you just haven't missed anything important. Check the chat. I know last week I was looking at the Twitch chat, and I was neglecting the YouTube chat, so I'll make sure I have both open now this week. So we should be a bit better. Let's see, there we go. So I guess we'll get moving. So for anyone who doesn't know, wasn't there last week, I'm doing all of the Cluedo characters. I'm like this. I redesigned a bunch of the Cluedo characters. I'm hoping I'm after ordering a printer. It was actually recommended. Well, Rafa Grizzetti did a YouTube video where he reviewed it. The Anycubic Photon Mono X. So I've ordered that and a new computer, so I'm really excited to get those, and hopefully once I get all of these sculpted and they're all finished, I'll be able to print them off and maybe play a game Cluedo with them, which could be fun. So that's the idea. So last week we had done a chunk of the blocking on the body and the head. So I took the head a tiny bit further, just around the mouth mainly, and I'll show you what I did there, because I took a little bit of a different approach just because of the shape. The last time I had the whole essentially the jaw, the cheeks and the jaw were one piece. I usually separate them into like a cranium, and then either the jaw and the cheeks as one piece, or in cases like this where you have these, like the cheeks are so prominent, I'll separate them out as well. And actually I ended up taking a very similar approach to anyone who's seen the ZBrush Masters episode that I did, where I did the devil character, where I separated the top and bottom of the mouth and the cheeks as well. So you can see here, this is the upper lip and this is the lower, and that way I get the crease in the middle, and I close that off with the cheeks. and that was just by essentially if I grab in something like this. So imagine if your mouth was here and you wanted to separate the upper lip and lower lip, so you can just use the slice and come across it like so. Or not. Oh yeah. Delete that. So you can see there, I had to delete the, because I subdivided it. You can see there, it cuts an edge. So I'll just mirror and weld, and now you've got this edge that goes right across. So if I separate this from the top one, and now you've got two sides, and then you can just extrude that in with your ZModeler, and extrude that in as much as you want the thickness of the lip. So that's all, that's the only difference that I actually did with this. And you can see it works, for anyone who was watching last week, it works a lot better for this mouth. Of a little bit more control, and I can control like the curvature of the bottom lip and just worry about that on its own. And a big thing I want is to make sure that where this comes up and meets the nose, like this plane here, this plane, I want a nice surface there. I don't want anything bumpy. So you can see, you can imagine if I was doing this with a Dynamesh, say I just had a sphere and I was making all these shapes from one mesh with Dynamesh, like getting these edges in here where everything meets, and then editing and making sure that this area here, this area was nice and smooth, would be like, I'd really have to fight it a lot. It'd be very difficult. So this way it just allows that I can go in and use my all smooth. So just holding shift, pressing down and letting go of shift to get the alternate version of smooth, which I know I've explained that a few times because it's just super handy and I use it all the time, where it, instead of it smoothing in and kind of flattening the surface, so you see you can do that, and it instead averages out the surface, and so if you have any curves or anything, it just gets that back. And you make sure, that's why everything is nice and low poly at the moment, because if this is super high poly, alt smooth and smoothing takes a very long time. You have to have the pressure up really high and you never quite get it there. So you can see here, like everything is like, there's two subdivisions there. There's a few subdivisions on some things just because I want to like define some edges and stuff, but you can see like anything like this, any like just big rounded volumes with no detail or anything, like it's just dynamic subdivision, and that makes life a little bit easier. You can see that just here, just under the geometry, dynamic subdivision, and that's just D on the keyboard and then Shift D to turn it off. So that's super handy, and I'd highly recommend to use that until you do need to actually go in to do your details. Or sometimes, like for example, the cranium part. So I've added there, that's just that's the low subdivision there. But at a certain point, so I can see what I'm doing and get like kind of the visual landmarks there, I can subdivide up and then use my pinch or whatever I need just to get that shape to what I need, and get them looking more or less in the right place. Do a quick render. Doing quick renders is actually really important, I think, as you go, because when you do a render, it kind of refreshes the image for you. So you can, sometimes it's a little bit easier to see if there's any issues or anything. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with how he is so far. Let's take a quick look at the chat. Joel M. Sup from Portugal. Hey Joel, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Let us know what you are all doing. I'd be always interested. Are you sculpting along or just sitting and chilling and watching? So question there from Andres. So when you use Damien standard, is it not blurry? Okay, so on these pieces that are just using dynamic subdivision, yeah, if I want to go in and use Damien standard there, you can see it doesn't have the resolution to actually get like a sharp edge in there. But if I need to go in and add an edge like that, that's when I'll add subdivision. Like you can see that on this top piece, on this piece, where I wanted to get a hard edge in here. So I use pinch and a bit of Damien standard on like the nose bridge. So at that point, if what I mean is, if you can, like on this jaw piece, leave it as just a dynamic subdivision, then you may as well leave it at that until you actually do need to go in and maybe add some detail or add some edges, or like if I wanted to it depends actually. If I wanted to go in and add an edge in here, if the topology was in the right kind of position, which ZBrush can often give you, I could like add an edge. Let me put the wireframe on. I could add an edge in here and kind of pull that out, and I'll get like a bit of an edge there, and you could like mask and push under there in to get like a bit of an edge. But that said, yeah, usually if I wanted to get like a kind of, this is obviously like fat under his jaw, but if I wanted to get that edge in, yeah, turn off subdivision or dynamic subdivision and just go in with the Damien standard then and add in whatever edge I needed. Can I provide the model to study? So yeah, some people have asked me that before. I've been debating on, so I have a Discord that you can get through, like through my ArtStation or in my Instagram. There's a link there to join the Discord, and in there you can get like my UI, which, just so you know, my UI, if you load in my UI, you'll notice it won't quite fit. It's because you have to go into interface UI and pull the button size right down, because I like things to be more compact. But I have my UI in there, and yeah, some people have asked me for models, so I'm kind of debating on whether to put my models in there. I have like there's like a resource tab in the Discord channel, so I'll see. I might do. Yeah, still kind of thinking about it. Let me know if a lot of people are interested in it, then yeah, I guess I'll consider doing that. So Ruben, I just joined. Is this Dynamesh or normal mesh? It's not Dynamesh. It's just, yeah, it's normal mesh. It's separated into different pieces, so you can see there. It will be Dynameshed. at the moment. This is the blockout phase. So we're getting the shapes in different pieces at the moment, and once those pieces are all kind of coming together well, then we can dynamesh them together. Or I know some people like to use the remesh by union, which if you go up, so when you take out your, if you combine them in your subtool palette and in your transform options, you can go over to remesh by union, and as long as they don't have a subdivision level, and it seems I always have to turn symmetry off, and that works well. And what's handy about that is you actually keep edges quite well. The reason I don't always use it is because if you dynamesh it's the whole mesh, the topology on the whole mesh changes, and that both have pros and cons. The whole mesh changes, and you'll have, like, in the creases you'll still have the same amount of you'll have the same density essentially of polys, but which is good because sometimes you might want to smooth an area, where if you use remesh by union, it gets it tries to not change the topology. So if I remesh by union this piece and this piece, it tends to try and keep the topology that's here and the topology that's here, and just change what's in the middle. So when you smooth it, you tend to get a lot of artifacting, and that can be a bit of a problem. So yeah, it depends on the situation. Try both, and because really I don't think a lot of people will say I use this or I use that, but really I think if you understand the tools, you need both, because both are better for certain circumstances and certain workflows. And you might have one workflow, but I mean, if you're sculpting all the time, your workflow, at least pieces of your workflow, will often change. So, and then it's often a case by case scenario on what you need for different parts or different characters. So it's a bit of, I wouldn't write off any tool by saying I only use this. Like even like the polish, like I know some people have said like I only use the H polish because I don't like the trim dynamic, but I mean they both do different things, so that depends on what you really need. I use H polish more often for sure, but that doesn't mean I never use trim dynamic. If I need it, I'll use it. I don't have a prejudice against a brush. Hopper Sean's in. He's in the Discord. You were in last week as well. You know what, man? I always try to do my own sculpting while watching others, but I always end up just sitting and watching. Yeah, that's often the case. I've done that myself. Do you merge visible, or do you just start polypainting instead of merging? That's a good question. That's something that sometimes I'll just, it depends on how I'm feeling almost. Like sometimes I'll just keep sculpting, and sometimes I will, and I'm not really thinking about the color, but the color does help. And sometimes I'll feel like, oh, I need to color this in and just see it broken up. It is good to do. Someone's on their bike outside. It is good to do, and it does kind of help. It'll help direct the sculpt almost. Like especially if you are going for like your final render is going to be textured or whatever. Then yeah, it is good to just, even at this stage, you could block in colors, and when you dynamesh, you can then refine the colors. it depends on kind of what you want to do. I wouldn't say if you have to do it at this particular stage. Sometimes I do it at this stage, and sometimes I wait until I've dynameshed everything and then I do the poly paint. See here, you depend on ZBrush for Retopology or any other software. From Pythpower. So yeah, again, depends on what I need. Like for studio work, you tend to have specific topology that you need to use that's across multiple characters, in which case obviously you have to you can't use ZRemesh. But like using the polygroups and ZRemesh, like you can get pretty decent topology. I think either way, if you're doing a character for production that needs to be rigged and everything, you really do at least, even if you use that as a base, and then at that point you kind of do need to go into manually retopologizing, or at least tweaking what you've got from ZRemesh. I don't think it would really get you the whole way there. Usually for when I'm doing retopology, I'll use Quadra in my so what camera are you using the webcam? I couldn't tell you that. It's a Logitech one. HD, a Logitech HD something, I can't remember. It's actually Shane Olsen that recommended it. I can't remember what the I'll try find it after maybe and just throw it into the chat for you. And the system specs, my computer is at this point pretty old, and I've been lazy and I haven't updated it enough. I'm actually I'll keep answering that, but I'm actually just going to throw in because I haven't been sculpting, so let's start sculpting. I'm going to start just getting in the hair again because I want to see it relative to everything. So I'm going to do that with a mask and extracting the mask. Let's see how I'll do that now. But my system specs, my computer is not up to scratch. It's not as good as it really should be. Which is why I literally sent the order off today for the new one. I wonder, can I pull that up? Oh, I can. Hold on. Just make sure there's nothing on here that I can't show. Yeah, so this is it here. This is the new computer. So it's a massive improvement on the current one I have. Like the current one I have is, I'm not even going to say it because it's embarrassing, it's ridiculous. I haven't updated it in like 5 years. So yeah, this is going to be a big jump. I'm super excited to get this thing. So I didn't go with the is it today? Tomorrow the 3090 comes out. But I didn't go with it because it's a lot more expensive, and I'm not 100% sure that it's gonna be worth how much more it is, at least not straight away. Maybe when it comes down a bit in price, but I don't really need that kind of power anyway. Like that said, I did get the I got plenty of RAM, and I got the Threadripper 64 core. That's kind of the biggest chunk of change out of this, so that's gonna be cool. But yeah, I got the 3080. So this is overkill. I wouldn't say, like, if you're trying to make a workstation to use ZBrush, you don't need anything even close to this. Like, this costs a lot of money. If like you wanted to build a workstation, like there's loads of stuff online of like workstations that are, depending on your budget and stuff. So I'd recommend doing that. I'm not like, I know I'd say enough about setting up a PC, but I'm by no means like super versed in building PCs. But yeah, I'm super excited to get that. It should come like next week or something. So the next stream I'll have it. Well, I hope so. So that's gonna be fun. Okay. And Life is Steph was asking, do you use ZBrush for a living? Are you a character artist? Yeah, I am indeed. I work in a studio. I'm from Dublin in Ireland, and that's where I live now at the moment. Possibly could change in the next, well, currently now it's put off a bit, so it could be another year or so or more. But at the moment, yeah, I'm working in a studio in Dublin called Brown Bag. And I'm a lead character artist for them. And the material I'm using, it's the ZBrush materials, ZBrush Clay. Actually got it off someone in work, sent me them. I've been using them ages. They're just kind of nice. They're not too some shaders I don't like to use. I think most ZBrush artists would say the same. Generally don't like to use, like, you know, shaders that are overly fancy, too much specular and stuff. It's just it doesn't, you can't read the surface properly. Something quite mute and simple is generally more effective. So here I'm just gonna extract the mask. So by anyone who doesn't know that, I just use the usual control, draw a mask on in the general shape where the hair is, and then you can go under subtool, you can go down to extract, and you can see that's going to extract geometry off that mask, and then you can just hit accept. If you move the camera at all, it will go back because it's trying not to be destructive, I guess. But yeah, once you hit extract, if you just hit accept, then you've got a new subtool, and there's your hair. It's a handy, quick way to just get like a chunk of geometry in place that you can start sculpting on. So again, this is where, so if you look at that, that's super dense, and I could go in and start using that, or use Dynamesh or Sculptris Pro to go in and start kind of noodling this into shape. But generally, especially to begin with, I say generally 99% of the time I always start by Z-remeshing super low, just because it allows for you to be a lot cleaner. So this is gonna be, so actually I'll just use the inflate brush, just put out the volume. Francisco Sabater. I'm always real conscious of like butchering people's names. And it's funny because Irish names, people always complain about how complicated Irish names are. I mean, mine isn't the most Irish sounding name by any means, but like, you know, Niamh O'Shaughnessy, like people see that name and that aren't Irish, and they just freeze up. But I'm always real conscious of like butchering people's names. Please feel free to tell me if you do, and then, but if you do, you have to put it like phonetically into the thing. And yeah, So do you make your own concept art or use concept art from other artists? If so, do you need permission before sculpting or just sculpt and credit the artist? Would love to practice both my drawing skills. Yeah, so I do both. Like this is my own concept. I can quickly show you this. Here, I showed it last week. I don't want to go over too much that I already said last week. These are just some quick sketches that I haven't finished yet. Some of them are kind of taken as far as I go. When I redo Mrs. Peacock, and I still have to do Miss Scarlet, but this is going to be, I didn't finish, this is a super quick thing, and this is more at the head I'm probably going for with Colonel Mustard. And yeah, like you can see there, Reverend Green, like it's not a completely finished sketch, but it's enough for me to go into ZBrush and flesh it out from there. And so yeah, they're all my own concepts. And like there's another one I'm working on, I think I have it there. Yeah, there's another one I'm working on at the moment. This guy's called Robbie Banks. Which is I have a younger brother who's only 9. He came along as a surprise, but he named him. It was, so for anyone of you that are familiar with the work of my portfolio, I have a gangster that I did, I have a gangster that I did, and this is like this is kind of another character from the same world, if you like. And this is Robbie Banks. So the gangster and these are my own concepts. And then some of them I don't like. I can pull it up real quick here. I know we're not sculpting as much this week. I hope that's okay. If you want me to start concentrating more on the sculpt, just let me know, I can. But I kind of enjoy having the chat switches. I'll just pull up my ArtStation real quick here so you can see what I mean. Which character is it? So this is the gangster. So that's my own concept. And then some of these. This is from Bill Schwab. So I think the concept is down here. This was the concept. So again, super sketchy, and which is I enjoy because there's a lot more to kind of figure out then, which I like. I tend to prefer that in like professional work as well. Like if you get something that's really, the concept is super fleshed out, like there's not a lot for you to add to it, which depends. Some people just like to have like a super fleshed out idea, and then they because there's obviously still is the talent in actually sculpting it, but I like to have some, I think because I do my own concepts as well sometimes, like I like to do that. I like that part of it. And yeah, a lot of these then actually there's a full page of them here. David Boudreau did the sketches for all these. Again, they're down here. These are all the sketches, and then you can see all the characters. So I did all 4 of these. They were a lot of fun. Really like his work. Yeah, so it's kind of like that was Samuel Youn's, then mine, and then David Boudreau's. Then so this was Nicholas Cole. Do I have it here? Yeah, Nicholas Cole did this, and I did the head, and then I added the body to it. It was the same with Mouse. I hope no. The original sketch was just like the head, and I added the body after. Super old. And then this one that I did during the beta test, that was my own as well. And then for the ZBrush Masters, oh yeah, I put it in here. This one was, I can't think now. I'll find out now. The name's gone out of my head. I wouldn't mind, he's one of my favourites. I must put that in the description there. Don't know why I didn't do that. I know it's in on Instagram and stuff. So yeah, generally it's a mix of both. And no, I wouldn't say you generally don't have to ask for permission. I've never heard of a 2D artist being like upset that someone sculpted their piece. If they do a bad job, then nothing's lost, and if they do a good job, then it's cool to see. I think for any 2D artist, it's kind of sign of appreciation, I guess. So no, I think most ZBrush artists, character artists, I guess even sets and stuff, use other people's concepts all the time. The majority do, and then some actually do a bit of both. And I did I did 2D for years before I ever even tried ZBrush. It's actually where probably most of my learning was done in terms of like anatomy and shape and stuff like that, which all just translated then straight into ZBrush. So once I learned how to use the software, you know, I kind of hit the ground running at that stage. I think I was using ZBrush like 7 months when I got hired as a 3D character artist, which obviously if you were using ZBrush and you'd never done any drawing or anything like that before would be insane, but when you've got that foundation already, it's kind of different. How useful is it to customize the layout? Very. I mean, the standard one is, the standard ZBrush layout is fine. The UI is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But when you do build up your own workflow, chances are you're gonna want like certain buttons that you use all the time, or shortcuts. You're gonna want to set shortcut key or shortcut keys and stuff like that, just to make life a bit quicker and easier for yourself. So like I definitely recommend it when you start to get used to ZBrush. To begin with, for sure, you'd start with obviously the default UI, but Pixologic have made ZBrush like very easy to customize for that reason, which is great because you can really do basically anything with it. You can put whatever button or brush or whatever anywhere and set anything as a hotkey. So it's super customizable, which is really nice. Pull this hair up. So you can see there the hair goes up at the back of his head. So let's try get that. And again, like I say that the hair does in the concept, but especially because it's my own concept as well, like I'm not completely married to it. I'm okay with changing it. Like if I do eventually think I prefer it lower, then I'll just lower it. I'm not getting too caught up in that, and that's actually something probably worth mentioning. That's something that you'll also find in some studios. Some studios are more heavy on getting, you know, really fleshed out 2D design, and you know, you have to follow that 2D design like to the button. And then some studios are very kind of, they'll get a loose sketch and they'll do a lot of design in the 3D stage, and some studios actually do all the design in the 3D stage. I've only ever worked with one studio that asked me to do the whole concept in 3D, which was a lot of fun. But I think it's under the assumption that like they would have asked me to do that without really knowing that I've done my own concepts, I would imagine. but not knowing that I necessarily draw. So I do still draw, like I'll draw like that, even a loose sketch, just to give me some direction to go in at the beginning. Not because I have to, not because like that's a rule or anything, but just I find it it's a bit faster. Because obviously doing a quick sketch is a lot quicker than doing a quick sculpt, just by the nature of sculpting. Chris Freeze, are you going to be a ZBrushLIVE regular? Yeah, every second week, every second Wednesday. I'll be streaming with Pixologic, which is awesome. This is my second now, so forgive me, I'm still kind of learning the ropes, but so far it's been great. Really enjoying it. And like I said, it's I enjoy it because I feel like I can kind of sculpt and chat away to everybody, which is kind of nice. Trying to make sure I at least try and stay on top of the chat. Can you give some beginner tips for anatomy? Well, it's kind of a loaded question because there's so much to anatomy. Like there's no one tip necessarily. You kind of have to figure it all out. You know, I could give a tip on like for example, especially when it comes to stylized, it's changing even again. But let's say, okay, so one tip for anatomy, let's say in the face, because people tend to start with the head, is placing the eye is very important. If you don't place the eye correctly, the face will always look weird, and a big part of that is because when we talk to each other, we generally look each other in the eye, so you're subconsciously very familiar with a face, even though you don't have to necessarily know the ins and outs of the anatomy. You're very familiar with how a face works, and especially the eyes. So I've heard that the reason children they'll always draw eyes really big in the head is because that's where you look when you talk to somebody. I don't know how true that is, to be honest, but I mean, it sounds kind of legit. When you're on the internet, no one can argue with you. But the eye placement is very, very important, and something that a lot of people do when they're doing the eyes is they don't set them into the head properly. So you can see there, like if I turn sideways, the distance that the eye is in the head. Let's go to this other sculpt here and check it on that. Again, okay, so I mean, it's a very stylized sculpt, so obviously no one's nose bridge is built like this, and neither is their brow, but it's very important. And I guess actually the best piece of advice I would give about anatomy is always, for beginners, is always use reference. I mean, study anatomy, but always use reference when you're doing your sculpts. And when it comes to doing stylized sculpts, you can't really just learn stylized. If you can't make a real head, then you're not going to make a very good stylized head, because all of the decisions that are made in, and you can ask anyone who does stylized sculpts. I know from the chat before, like there's a couple of you guys that are in Shane Olsen's course, and I'm sure he'd confirm the same thing. Or anyone who does it, is if you don't understand how a real head works, then the anatomy of a real head is what drives most of your design and keeps it grounded. When you have that information, like, you can tell the difference between a stylized head made by someone who really understands anatomy, and how, and like, if you take any of the people, any of the well-known artists, like Shane, like Dylan Ekron, that do that, like, I guarantee you they all are very familiar with how a real head would make, and I guarantee you they could sculpt a pretty good realistic head as well. At least pretty good. So it's a case of, as the saying goes, you need to learn the rules before you can break them. Stylizing is breaking the rules, essentially. But only in a certain way. Even super style, like where the head of the character is like because especially when you get into production in studios, you're doing the head, and it might be essentially like a rounded cylinder for a head, but you've got to make the mouth work. The mouth has to be animated and the eyes have to blink. So even then, in the back of your head, you're kind of thinking, what would this thing's skull look like? Where if the mouth's gonna open, where would the jaw pivot, for example? So even then, but then of course you have your shape language and your design. I think I was talking last week about the CSI, the principle, something an old supervisor of mine said, CSI, so as in literally the letters C, S and I. So an S curve, a C curve, an S curve and an I curve, and to use those opposite each other, like how the back of this is very simple and then the front is more complex. It complements, it's a balance. If you have the back the same level of complexity, it starts to get really noisy and it feels unbalanced and there's no focus. So yeah, there's a and I wouldn't say there's necessarily a beginner's tip, but yeah, always use reference. And then in terms of the eyes, always make sure, set them back a little bit more than you think you should. It's always better than not enough. Not enough always looks weird. You end up with this kind of bug-eyed look, which is, I see a lot of like beginners doing. And then, I mean, it's very extreme in this because of the general just design of the character, but being able to see from a 3/4, actually being able to still see the side of the head, because your head, like there's the side plane of your head and the front. The side plane of your head doesn't start at the corner of your eye. Where your eye ends, your head is still continuing in that direction, and it turns then. Where a lot of people, they either maybe not go straight back, but they're going really far back. As soon as they get to the corner of the eye, they're changing the plane to almost back, and so you lose the visibility of the side of the head. And you'll notice, especially in stylized characters, they often have a lot of volume outside the side of the eye, and that's super important to kind of capture that in your sculpt. How much time do you take in general to create a character? So for a full length character, again, because I kind of generally, like I would say this style is quite different to say the gangster I was showing you, or even this guy. These two, I mean, this is still quite this is still a work in progress, obviously, but like it depends, like maybe I want to keep it really simple like this, in which case fine, it's done. Or maybe I want to go in and start adding wrinkles and stuff, and that'll take like a few hours at least, and so there's so many little things that will add a lot of time on. So it's very hard to say how long I take, and really how long I take in my personal work isn't really relevant to anyone else, but I would say, but actually when it comes to production work, in a studio, like the turnaround there, which might be more relevant to you, so I don't know if you're in a studio or, but like for me, when I get a design, and again I'm doing stylized characters for animation, to do a design sculpt for the studio, it generally takes me between 2 days and you can get that could be pretty decent, like sometimes this level of detail or more in 2 8-hour days. And then that's going solid, music on, and just sit down and get stuck in kind of thing. And then sometimes it can be 4, 5, 6. Depends, because sometimes certain things will trip you up that you weren't really counting on. So it can really fluctuate. I guess generally in the studio, 3 days will be the average. 3 to 4 days would be the average. 3 days, I'd say 3. Okay. So yeah, I've added in the hair there, and that's actually really helped it a lot, I think, to feel more like this character. So I talked about this before as well, about but it's important, I think, to really get that point across. Yeah, to really get that point across is everything is relative to each other. So I'll show you something kind of fun that I did with the design now in a second. I'll give you a hint. He's a man of the cloth. He's a man of God, but he's in Cluedo, so that means he could potentially be the bad guy. So I kind of want to see, can I, and I haven't done it with all the characters, but I kind of want to see, can I give some really subtle, almost subconscious detail in each of them that makes them evil, potentially, without actually making the whole character look like a bad guy. So if anyone try and guess what it might be. It's already here. I've already done it. But the fact that everything is relative to each other, like if you haven't seen the previous stream, if you even just flick through it, you'll see like it's important to get everything blocked in really quick. Doesn't need to be super detailed, doesn't need to be like the exact right shape. Just get it in and then start moving everything around each other, because if you sit and focus in on, like, say, getting that nose shape just right, and just for fun I added 2 little things, I mean, because why not? But you know, you're doing that and you haven't got the eyeballs in, you haven't got the ears in, you haven't got the chin in, you haven't done any of that, got maybe the cheeks in, and then you start adding that after. You'll realize once you put the eyes in, you're like, oh no, the nose is in the wrong position, and then you're gonna have to move that, and then you add the cheeks in, and then you realize, no, that's still the wrong position for the nose, and now I realize that the eyes are in the wrong place. So once you have everything in, everything is relative to what's around it. And I know probably a few of you have heard me say that a few times, but I want to drill that into you, is that any beginners, because I see so many people getting ahead of themselves in the sculpt before they've got everything in, and it's not an effective way to work. You know, it's more than not, it's going to leave you having to correct things that you've spent a lot of time on and go backwards. So I see Darko join there. Hey Darko, I work with Darko and Brown Bag. He's another character artist. He's let's plug you here, Darko. Put your YouTube channel in there. Anyone who's Darko does tutorials for Maya and some modeling stuff, and yeah, he's super talented. Check him out. See, I think I'm missing a few now. Is it good to make eyelids like this for animation? Yeah, I mean, okay, so let's look at the eyelids for a second. So here you can see, so actually this is another thing that's people tend to kind of get wrong early on. So those eyeballs, generally speaking, people would assume that they're like that big, the radius of the brush there, and that's kind of the size that people make them, but they're much bigger. And the reason for that is because we want the eyes in stylized characters are generally very big. Like they'd be a lot smaller in this guy because his actual eyeballs are small, you see. But the idea is if you do them too small, so let's make these much smaller. Isolate them. Much smaller. And then we'll place them thereabouts where they need to be. See that curvature? They're really rounded when you get to the side or anything. It looks like a bulgy eye. It looks like their eye is bulging because it's too much curvature. So if you do them nice and big, they're still inside the head, but you don't have such an extreme curvature. And so that's why you make the eyes bigger in the head. And then setting the eyelids, I do them separately because for the same reason I do everything else separately. It means I can, you know, I can come in and if I do the eyebrows and then I'm like, oh, now that I've done the eyebrows, I can see that the eyelids are in the wrong place. Like I can very easily just go in and move them around. But once you can see here, so that's how the eyelids are topology wise, very low, with dynamic subdivision on, and I can just extrude them back. Extrude them back, and I'll generally extrude them back quite far because once I dynamesh this all together, I kind of want them to meet the back of the head rather than have a lip, because it's gonna give dynamesh more work if there's an actual lip that it has to go down across the shelf of the eyelid here and then back up again. So I generally just go right back, so it's more of a solid chunk there. For animation, you'll want an actual lid. And then I can add in a support loop there. And the handy thing about having it like this is because I've got this polygroup now, I can use that polygroup if I duplicate this. So I've duplicated the subtool, and now I can use this polygroup. So I'm just Control Shift and hitting it, which is gonna, if you have multiple polygroups and you Control Shift, then it will isolate that polygroup and the other one's hidden. And now I can just go to delete hidden, which is under geometry, under modify subtools, delete hidden. And now that that's done, if I take, wrong one, this tool, if I get rid of that, again delete hidden, which I have shortcut keyed, which is why that's the customization thing is a problem, or is important. I can auto group, which is down under polygroups down here. I can isolate that. So now this started from that other polygroup in the eyelid. I can isolate that. I just mirror and weld it, turn off local symmetry, mirror and weld it, and now I can use my ZModeler. Let's say an edge right there. Now let's go in a bit there, and then I can delete polyloop, and now insert is on. I can remove these, and then I can go mask, select that edge, so mask and edge loop, and it'll stop at the corner, it won't wrap all the way around. And now if I control tap on the canvas, it's going to flip that mask, and now with the move brush selected, and again, for those of you who don't know, a super handy thing, if you hold Alt and you drag over a surface, it will drag off, it will push off the normal of the surface that you're on. So if I drag here from the eye with Alt, so I just push now and drag, you see the eyeball's coming out because it's pushing it off the surface that I'm touching with the brush. So I'll get some eyelid, and now that that's there, I'll just put like insert, show an edge there where the end of the eyelid is, or where the end of the eyelid is, and back to mask, flip it like I did before, but just control touching the canvas. Super quick, super easy, and complete control. And again, now I can hit D for dynamic subdivision, and you see it actually loses the edge, like it shrinks a little bit because it's subdividing, because it's smoothing. You can either crease it, or you can add, what I tend to do, it depends, you can either crease it, which will, you can crease the polygroup, I'll have that on. Trying to think now, creases in here, I think, yeah, crease. You get used to your UI, this is the thing, you forget where buttons actually are. So crease, or just that will crease the edge, or crease the entire polygroup, and so you can do that now. If you can see there, because it's creased, it won't shrink. If I uncrease, it'll shrink again, or I can actually do it manually by adding in a support edge. So I tend to add in support edges in general, just because I tend to do my renders outside of ZBrush, and it's a mix of box modeling and sculpting, and so it's kind of just good if I have a bunch of stuff creased, and then I bring it in, and then I'm realizing there's stuff that isn't, like in Maya that wouldn't happen, it doesn't shrink the edge, an open edge like that, but if I add, so if I get rid of that extrude, and give this some thickness. Just taper it in at the bottom. Give this thing some thickness. Now if I smooth it, this will happen in Maya. So, and if I crease, again, if I crease the polygroups, that will fix that. But that is a super hard edge, which can be good. I would use sometimes if I don't want to add, if I need to move things around, I don't want a bunch of support loops in the way. But for when I'm finished with it, I'll usually just add in the support loops because I want it to maintain its shape when I'm rendering it in another software. So again, you know, you can't say, well, I add support loops, yeah, well, I use crease, because it depends. I mean, there's other options outside of that, but so again, that's an example. I'm not really happy with how they look because they're super big. But so we can go back a bit there. Get back to a plane. The reason I want to get back to a plane is because I can edit it much quicker as a plane, and then I can just extrude it when I'm finished. So yeah, I don't want these that long. Something like that. Delete, polyloop. There we go. And grab this. Like, he doesn't really have, you know, he definitely doesn't have eyelashes that are by any means noticeable, so I don't want to start giving them, but something there is nice. So again, I could have crease on now. Sorry, have crease on now to see how that will look. You can see there, it's in the eyeball. I need to move this eyeball back a little bit. It's too far. Then again, yeah, maybe if I just scoot over that way a little bit, that'll do me. I don't know how I feel about that, but we might leave it there for a minute. If I'm unsure of something, like if I know something doesn't work, yeah, if I know something doesn't work, then I'll get rid of it. If I'm not sure, I'll just leave it like that. Don't touch it anymore. Leave it like that and come back to it and see how I feel about it when I haven't looked at it for a little while. So that's not too bad there. That's fine. Subtle enough. Okay, so I said I was going to show you what makes him evil. So I don't know, has anyone guessed? Let me have a Bashkin, thanks very much. A love for our Voldemort. Thank you. Oh, A cubed is in. Round 2. Thanks a lot. Nice to have you join it. You're a great sculptor. I don't see any guesses. I'm a bit disappointed, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, Shane Olsen's in as well. Hey Shane, thanks for joining, brother. So the trick in the design, no one guessed. I'm a bit disappointed, I'm not gonna lie, but no one guessed. That's okay. So we'll just make sure Polypaint is off. So the little thing is his eyebrows. So again, as I said, this guy is supposed to be a man of God, but his silhouette, he's got little horns, which actually the hair is taken away from. So I've killed the build up to that now. But he's got little horns in his silhouette, which again, I know if you're playing with this, if you're actually playing Cluedo with this guy and you're looking at this little thing, you're not going to go, oh look, he's got horns. But you know, it's a little thing that I can, maybe subconsciously someone will pick up on it and they'll be go, oh, it's like he has horns. I wonder did that guy do that on purpose. And I'll be laughing maniacally somewhere. So that was the little thing that I wanted to do. That was my little idea. It made me feel so clever. It's a great name. Horns on his head. Yeah, fair play. Someone guessed. I hope I haven't missed any. If anyone guessed, well done. That one person there guessed, and I'm delighted that they did. So it's not just me who sees it, which is great. That's awesome. Okay, so as you can see, like his head is very much coming together now. Like again, like, you know, at this point you want to make sure that you don't get too excited and you start dynameshing stuff. Like you want to really hold out. Do they have? Yeah, they're dynamic. So I'm going to use this, and this is something I often do. I just use another subtool because it's quicker, and just bang that into shape rather than making a fresh one. But actually, that's for the sake of show you how I might make a fresh one. So what I want to do is add the node. I think it's called, if I remember correctly. I think it's actually just called the node. No, I feel like I'm thinking of something else. Anyway, the little bit in your ear here, let's call it the node. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take the topology brush and I'm just going to go like that. And straight through, and then just do one of these and one of these. I don't think it's, did it? Let's see. No, okay. I think it needs to be, I think it needs to be, maybe it needs to be on something without subdivision levels. I'm pretty sure that might be the case. I may have forgotten that. But anyway, we just need a flat surface basically. We can do it on this one because I know this one doesn't. Put the subdivision levels back into that. There we go. So we'll just use this because all we need is a flat surface. Flattish will do. So there's one of those. One of those. Oh. Straight across. There. Through there. One of them and one of them. So we're doing a little, you know, on the flight. It's in behind. There it is. So now there's our piece, and we're just gonna slap it in to place. Turn off local symmetry so it doesn't move on anywhere on us. Throw it on in. Can't add a comment on mouse at your art station. Oh, can't. Oh, I don't know why that is. But thank you. Glad you like it. She's a popular one, alright. Ear nubbin. Yeah, let's go with ear nubbin. I like that. How do you do to animate this character? Well, this character, okay, so that might be a little bit of a talking point, to be fair. So this character, if you mean how would this character be animated, at that point I'd have to do full retopology. Again, I could potentially use polygroups, mass polygroups in the right areas, and use Z-remesh. And there's a way to kind of do that within ZBrush, but generally I use quad draw, and I do the retopology, and then I do would rig the eyes essentially and the mouth, and use that to drive blend shapes, skin them, and then use that to drive blend shapes to get some of the facial expressions for the riggers, and send that all to the riggers and the texture artists, and they do their jobs, and we send that to the animators, and hopefully the animators don't come back with any notes, but they always do, which is fine, because you know you want the thing to look as good as possible. So if it's not working for them, they'll just flag whatever issues there might be, and sometimes the issue could be a blend shape, sometimes it could be something in the topology, hopefully not that. Sometimes it's something in the rig, and yeah, that's kind of the process there. But for this and any of my other like personal work, it's just a design sculpt. It's just a sculpt to do a quick render and put it into the portfolio. It's not something that needs to be done for production. That said, I don't have like any retopology or anything in my portfolio, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. It's good, you know, if you're applying for studios or anything like that, to have some evidence to show that like you know like how to retopologize a character. It will make things a lot easier. I just do it like so much in work that it's just, at this point it's very hard for me to be motivated to. I do need to do it, but yeah, I'll do it eventually. No, I do. I should. I mean, there's a software you can use to, if you take a base mesh. That actually you can do it. Is it ZWrap? I think you can do it in there's a plugin for ZBrush called ZWrap, where you can take one mesh, the topology, and you draw point by point where you want the topology to sit on your sculpt, and it will wrap the topology, the base mesh, to your sculpt, which is super handy. There's some other softwares that do it, but you can actually do it with a plugin in ZBrush, which is pretty freaking cool. So there's our ear nubbin, as Shane calls it, which we now all call it, because that's fantastic. I love the word nubbin. You know, certain words just sound good. Nubbin. Yeah, Shane needs to give it. I need to give it a go as well. I haven't. I have wrap, but I haven't used it in that. It'd be super handy to have, to be able to do that within without having to leave ZBrush would be great. Could actually just could essentially send the character straight to rigging without ever leaving ZBrush. So there's his ear nubbin, more or less. Well, again, these are the little things. You don't want to just ear nubbin and knock it in and call it a day. You know, a little bit of thought. See, again, this is creased. See how sharp that is? It's creased. You can see there's no support edges there. And I don't really like how sharp it is, because it doesn't fit. It's like razor sharp, and that doesn't fit with anything else. So I tend to uncrease and then I'll just use my insert. In fact, yeah, no, I'll use my insert there. Something like that. Throw one in here for good measure. There you go. So now it's not going to cut you. And even then, if you're like, well, it could be a little bit, you could either just go down to the inflate a little bit and that'll actually ease it off. Or again, like if you just tap, just a tap with the smooth, the alt smooth, we'll just loosen those loops a little bit. What time is it? I should have lost time. So now his face really come together, which is great. So I'm gonna just throw in. Let's see, I don't want to miss anything. Well, let's save it. Tragus. Nubbin equals tragus. Nice. Google. Yeah. So Dougie put in there. So the nub, if you really want to know, which I feel like we don't, because nubbin is enough, but a nubbin in the real world is actually a tragus, apparently. Dougie googled that one for us. Fair play to you. And fair play Google, and Google knew what it was. Yeah, nice. Shane's bullying Doug. Nubbin is the best. Yeah, let's stick with nubbin. But we do appreciate the effort, Doug. Fair play. It's good to know. I'll never actually need to know, because I reckon if we just, Shane, if you do it as well, anytime you're on stream, just always refer to this as a nubbin, and we'll spread it until it becomes like just what everyone calls it. That's what we'll do. The ear nubbin. Remember where you were when you heard it. This bit I'm not so sure about. This bit, like, I'm adding in because I want a bit of meat there before, like, I don't want the mouth to go straight up in, all the way up into the cheek, because there's like a bit of something between there. There's actually, Dougie, while you're there, there's a piece, there's like a muscle just here, just like right in the edge of the mouth there, that caused that little crease. Figure that one out for us while you're at it, if you don't mind. That'd be great. And it happens before, like, the crease in the see, if the nasal lobial fold, I do know that one. The mouth meat. The mouth meat. Yeah. Rest in peace, Doug. There's the nasal lobial fold, which comes down the face and around the mouth, and that's what, like, picks up here and creates that, like, volume there. But there's as Shane called it, the mouth meat, just between the edge of your mouth and where that starts, where that nasal lobial fold starts. So it's more just to have something in there. And again, this is where, you know, like, you kind of want to be checking it from looking at it from a distance, because especially when it's in multiple pieces, sometimes, you know, this is going to be dynameshed in and smoothed and have an edge in one place and not in the other. So it's not, you almost have to imagine when you're putting things in what it's going to be in the next step. And not just rush to that step to try and get that in too early. Now the back of the hair there, see as well, because it's low poly, see how easy it is to just make a nice smooth mask. I might just drop that angle a little bit, and then we can just come in with the pinch and go along there. I can often go a bit too much intentionally, which I spoke to before. Actually, it's not bad. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, but anyway, go a bit too much. So let's actually go a bit too much, and then use the alt smooth to just start to go backwards from there. It's kind of going too far, because if you the idea is that if you don't, you can either get it bang on, you can go too far, or you can go not far enough. So if you don't go far enough, you'll never know where just right was. If you go too far and then peel it back, you can peel it back piece by piece until you hit something that's just nice. Where if you never really push it, then you'll always land short, and you'll have never got to see where just right was. So better to go too far and come back. Is the idea there. So it's up. I might even, what's that like there? I might even just, so if I can just line, see the way there's an edge loop here. This poly loop. Let me hold it for you. Poly loop. Oh, it's masked. Sorry. Oh, subdivision levels. Oh, maybe it's wrapping in itself, so it doesn't want to do that. But anyway, so I'm gonna add an edge. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's wrapping in itself. So along this poly loop here, I can just add an edge again. Going back to like the fact that it's low poly makes life a bit easier. Don't do that. And just mask down to that. And then this time I'm not all smoothing, because I actually, instead of using a polish, because I've got a nice low poly mesh, I can use the smooth. And see, can I just see what it looks like to just get like a nice crisp end to his hairline there. Again, hair doesn't really have a crisp end, but stylized hair does sometimes. Yeah, maybe something like that. Just for fun. Or for a crack, as we say in Ireland. I'd love to know where that saying came from. You dug, if you've still got Google open, that's another one. Where did the Irish saying, we can't just say crack, because that won't make any sense to Google, but like, it's like good crack. Where did the saying good crack come from? And it's crack, C-R-A-I-C, not C-R-A-C-K. It's great crack. So at this point now, I'm starting to, because just in here, I'm thinking I might want to go in with the polish there, because I don't have loops in all the right places. That could be a song. So at this point, I might want to just subdivide up so I can go in with the H polish and just see, can I get that edge all the way working there? See how that looks. Just been, it's been a bit, when it comes to polishing or anything like that, it's kind of been a bit gentle and progressively kind of going at it. See, that's a bit janky just in there. Don't like that. I might just leave that a little bit smoother. So just control Z back there. But you can see already, yeah, that's fine. Now that the subdivisions are up, how much the alt smooth doesn't really do much anymore. So like if I start messing stuff around and going in and out and stuff, I can't. There's alt smooth and I'm pressing down and I can go up subdivision. See, it's barely doing anything. You'd be sitting there for days trying to get that to go back to an edge, if it ever would. Pretty sure it just wouldn't. So you can't get those curves back, so you need the lower poly count for that to work. Hence why I come back to something I said at the very start of the stream, like this is still dynamic subdivision. Like it's just Z-remeshed really low. It was a plane and I extruded it in to get the lip. So, and this needs to be a nice big round volume like you can see here in the concept. So if you don't, if this had a lot of subdivisions in it, then I lose a certain element of control to it. Hopper Sean, if you're still there, catch you next time, bud. Thanks for dropping in. Use mouse or graphics tablet. Yeah, Besh can answer the question there. 22-inch Cintiq. See the pen there. You couldn't do this with a mouse. I mean, maybe technically you could do this with a mouse, but I don't think so. I mean, maybe in some reality you could try to do this with a mouse, but it'd be a nightmare. You need like the pressure sensitivity is the big part of the graphics tablet, and then just the fact that, you know, well, I would say the Cintiq is not necessary. A normal graphics tablet like an Intuos is just as good. This is more of just a luxury type of thing. It doesn't make it easier or anything. I know some people who don't like to use Cintiqs. They don't like to use screen graphics tablet. Like they prefer the fact that what they're working on is in front of them and their hand isn't on top of it. For me, I like the Cintiq. I mean, most of my life, I mean, I drew on paper. You can't separate your hand from that, so. Let's see, how do we feel about that? That was a long time down here, wasn't it? This way, I'd like to show you and go through this whole thing on stream, but it's not necessarily the most practical thing, to be honest, because when we're chatting and everything, so it tends to slow the sculpting down quite a bit. Like I said, I lost a bunch of files, so I had to rebuild what I did in the last one. But like the last time we spent 2 hours, and I think I got it back and even a little bit further to what it was in those 2 hours in less than an hour. So in less than half the time, like 40 minutes or something. But obviously, like as I'm going along, I'm explaining things, and so that it'll slow things down a little bit, which is fine. But in terms of actually getting used to see the whole character done, like it does mean I'll probably have to do a bit offline, just to keep it manageable, because it'd be nice to actually go through all the characters. But once I can show you all the techniques and stuff that I'm going through, and then just do a bit more of that offline until the next time we're on. So I think we need to add something here. So is the painting on, do I want to just like grab some hands that I have, or do I want to like actually go in and sculpt some hands? I mean, I don't need to get too over complicated with the hands on this guy. Probably won't have time to sculpt through the whole hands in this one. So the idea is I want them to kind of like be, he's got like a little jacket on, or like a gansy, as we say, a jumper, and I just want them to be kind of, you know, that kind of thing where he's kind of holding his jacket open. And something I've thought about as well is just, I don't know how I want to do it yet, but just adding a bit of asymmetry to the face just to make it a little bit dynamic, which again I'll want to do while it's in separate pieces, because it'll be easier. If I dynamesh it and then have to move things around, again same way like with actually building up the pieces in the first place, I've a lot less control. If I want to just move the eyebrow, it's very difficult to move, well, I say the eyebrow, like I mean this area here. If I want to just say lift this part of the eyebrow up a bit more or something, and that's connected to the eyelid, then both of them are going to move, and I've less control over where the lines meet and the general shape, and it makes it very difficult to keep it clean. So any asymmetry that I want to bring into the face or the body, I want to do that while the body is still in pieces, and I haven't dynameshed anything or meshed by union, remeshed by union. So his hands are actually quite big in the concept, and they're not that direction. They're more like out there. So for now we're just going to get like a fist shape, give or take. Same roll deploy, and just lower the poly count a little bit, and a little bit more. On my YouTube, it's in there, Paul Deasy. Let's see here, maybe I can post it in the chat for you. Generally throw up a couple of like there's actually a video like just there you go. I can throw in while I'm doing that, I'll throw in actually better again link tree. to get all the links to anything that I have there. So that'll be ArtStation and YouTube and whatever else. So I'll put that in the chat, that'll be easier. There you go. So everything's on that, and the Discord channel as well. The invite on that should be just as many as possible, or as many as you want for as long as you want. So if you have any trouble with that, let me know, I can update you. Yoda Y, hello, how did you learn to sculpt, and what would you advise a beginner to learn? I learned to sculpt, well, I sculpted a little bit of traditional in college, and just I do it sometimes just kind of for fun, traditionally, but I'd say I learned to sculpt, well, I did animation in college, did a lot of life drawing, a lot of built up a lot of drawing skills, and from then some stage, a good few years ago now, a friend of mine told me to try ZBrush, because he was a modeler, and we went to college together, and he was more into the 3D end of things, and I was more into the 2D end of things, and he because generally, like in college, even we box modeled characters, we didn't get to use ZBrush or anything, and I had heard of ZBrush, but I hadn't used it yet, and he said to me, oh, you should try it, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess I will, and again did, and because I was too busy drawing, and I hadn't picked it up yet or anything, and he kept at me and at me and at me, and eventually I got to I got to play around with it. We were actually working on some like kind of silly project thing, and I sat down at his computer and played around with it for a while, and kind of got into it from there. And at that stage, it was just learning through like YouTube on how to use the software, and like I said before, I knew a lot about like anatomy and shape and stuff like that from drawing, and it translated in like immediately. So that's kind of how I began. Like I'm obviously still learning. You're always still learning. Not to sound something a bit about that, but I mean it's true. So for beginners, I would say you know, start simple, get something easy enough, like just a bust, nothing with like super complex hair or anything like that, just something nice and easy. Start off with, you know, don't bite off more than you can chew. Start off something nice and simple, and just have fun with it. I mean, that sounds a little bit like I don't want to have fun, I want to learn a skill. And yeah, but like if you just start by having fun with it and enjoy it, and you will just get better at it, and you'll want to learn more about it. That's the idea there. I know. I mean, maybe it doesn't. I just remember when I was learning, you know, people say stuff like that to me, and I was always kind of, my Irish pessimism kicked in. I was like, give me a break. But yeah, find something that you like. You know, if it's a character, great. If it's stylized, if it's whatever, an alien, if it's a, you know, creature. I always kind of liked you know, stuff like this, something it's kind of goofy and funny and light-hearted. It wasn't necessarily, it's funny because as a kid I was always into like monsters and stuff, and Batman still massive Batman fan. Never left me. If you look at any of my pictures as a child, I'm usually holding a Batman toy. And yeah, but for some reason I'm more into yeah, kind of light-hearted, I guess kind of funny kind of characters, and I don't really know why that is, but I enjoy them more. I find them actually, in a way, I find them more, I think in a way they're more challenging to they can be more challenging for people to, in a film, obviously, you know, like you think like Sony films, Pixar, Disney and so on, there's lots of like kind of cute, funny characters that everyone loves. But in terms of stuff that you might post online, a lot of people love like game art, and they love like big action posed things, and that generally gets a lot more kind of the attention. And I don't know, is a weird part of me kind of like going with the underdog subject a little bit, because I tend to do that, and I don't know, I'm waffling, but it's just something I've considered, like, is that why I do this? Is that why I like to do this more? I don't know, because I often find when I get to a point, and I'm sure lots of people, maybe everybody that's on some level is the same way, where I get to a point where I'm like, okay, no, that's completely successful now, I don't want to do it anymore, I just start doing something else. So I don't know, maybe not. I'm way off point there. So yeah, to answer your question, start with something easy and work from there. Don't bite off more than you can chew, and just start playing with it. Enjoy it. Don't think too much about like making something that everyone will love. Just ignore that. Just do what you want to do, and you'll get better at it. And when you get better at it, regardless, there's always people out there with the same interests or similar interests as you. So, you know, be unapologetically yourself, I guess, when it comes to your art, to making these things, and you'll enjoy it more, which means you'll do it more, which means you'll get better at it. And once the quality is high, the people who are into that type of thing too, and there's always loads of them because there's no shortage of humans, you'll find your audience then. So that's what I'd say. And Besh, can you answering people's questions? Also, what is your YouTube? Yeah. Oh yeah, Shane saying, yeah, a lot of tools won't work with regular subdivisions. Yeah, that's also true. Like you see me trying to use the topology brush, you can't like mirror and weld, you can't flip the mesh. There's a whole rake of them, and you'll figure out as you go along. You can't use the ZModeler brush. There's a bunch of stuff. Once you subdivide, you can't use any of those things anymore, which is kind of a pain sometimes. So you know, you kind of plan ahead for that. You're not going to do it if you know you're going to need that later. So I'm talking too much, and I know I'm not sculpting properly, but Oh, here we go. Oh no. Oh, I missed this comment. Okay. Emmy the Geek, who I work with as well. I'm disappointed crack isn't originally Irish. We borrowed it from the English and Scottish. Yeah? I mean, if Google says so, maybe, but that doesn't sound right. I don't hear English people saying crack. I mean, and I'm not sure I've heard Scottish people say it either. But maybe Scottish. But I feel like I definitely haven't heard any English people saying that's some crack. Like, mighty crack. It's... I feel like any English or Scottish person is going to go, no, that's an Irish thing. It's not. I mean, maybe... I don't know. I don't want to fact check that one. It sounds funny to me. What time is it? 10 minutes. Go away. Maybe. I really hope that's not the case. Because I feel like that's our thing. Or one of them. Oh, sorry, yeah, the link tree is on YouTube. Hold on, I can put that. In the other group. I'll put that in the Twitch as well. What else was there? Oh, Dougie, you say crack here in America and you'll see heads torn. Is that because crack is a different meaning, or explain that one for me now? Okay, I'm right there. Yeah, there you go. That should be in Twitch now as well, the link tree thingamajigger. So, it's more or less some fists knocked in. He still needs to be quite a fair bit bigger, I think. But whatever, he's starting to look fun. So this is a nice point as well, because when the character starts, you start to see the character. You start to, well, I know I do, and I feel like a lot of others do. I know certainly some others do. At this point, you start to get kind of like, you know, you really want to keep going. You're kind of getting excited about how the character's looking, and you know, he was kind of one of my favorites as I was drawing them. Which I was debating, do I really want to start with one of the favorite ones, or should I leave that to last? Kind of, you know, that's my kind of reward for getting through them. I was like, nah, just gonna do it for funsies, for a crack. Crack doesn't mean the same thing here. Would you be familiar with the Irish sense of the word crack, though? Even though no one would necessarily actually say it in a sentence, usually day to day, would you be familiar with the word? I'm curious. Crack here in America, which is oh, like crack the drug. Yeah, okay, yeah, I know crack. That it's funny. I feel like a lot of because obviously a lot of the because a lot of like TV is American TV. Like I know a lot of, I feel like I know, I mean maybe in practice I don't, but I feel like I know like a lot, if not most, of American slang. but it can't work the other way around because no one in America is bothering to watch Irish TV shows, or not many of them. Maybe, yeah, actually, name, if you do, if any of you watch any Irish TV shows, put them in the chat. But like, it's very common to hear American slang on the TV, obviously, like crack. Is that technically slang? Oh, I guess it is. I don't want to go too far now on this guy until. So maybe next time, maybe for the next track, because the last one was a bit of both. This time we kind of focused a bit more on chatting and you know, trying to answer your questions or whatever. So maybe next time we can try to hone in on the sculpting a little bit more. Yeah, top. Is saying, to be fair, I've never heard of an Irish show. Yeah, yeah, I'm not surprised. There's not any, you know, there's no worldwide shows coming out of Ireland really. Dose of Frankie Boyle every day and I can't stop smiling. Frankie Boyle is Scottish. But close. Shane, you've never heard the word crack? You've never heard, like, I feel like there is some Irish, like, there's obviously a lot of Irish culture in America. Like, you've never heard, like, even, like, I just can't believe I'm gonna, but like a leprechaun, you know, like all that top of the morning and all those stereotypical things and mighty crack. Is that not? I would have thought, like, top of the morning, surely, at least. Not in that context. Alright. Yeah. Well, there you go. There's a new thing that you've learned today. You should learn something new every day. Yeah, you'd say, like, that show we went to see, or, well, you want to say the show, that that bar we went to last night was great crack. Or you could say Shane Olsen's great crack, meaning like you're a fun person. That's the idea of crack. Some crack. As you just yeah, it gets shortened then. Ah, sure, he's some crack. Or he's sound. Let's say that as well. Do you know Shane? Yeah, he's sound. I don't know where any of this comes from, but I've always, like, it's just, you know, like any slang, I guess, in any country, just pick it up. Shane, it is your duty next Monday to use the word crack no less than 12 times. Spoke with a girl. Oh, here we go. Joe M. Spoke with a girl from Ireland and she said top of the morning wasn't really Irish, that it was made up in Hollywood movies. Yeah, probably. Nobody here says top of the morning. Like, no, your mother's never going to come in Ireland and wake you up for school and go top of the morning. Like, nobody does that. I'd actually be surprised if it wasn't something that came from like American movies or something like that. Because yeah, I have never heard a person say that seriously. So yeah, it's definitely more of a, well, I guess a pop culture type thing than an actual thing that we say. I'd almost say it ironically, just to be funny. Oh, you've heard how have you heard, like, that one? I would have thought was super Irish that no one would know to say, oh, he's sound. Shane, I've ruined your next stream. Everyone's just gonna be, say crack. You talk about crack for the entire thing. Mr. Chris, I must have missed that. Can I get my ZBrush W editions? Wilchins answered, please. I'm not sure. I think I missed that question. Do you want to, if you drop it in again for me, and let me see. It's more like, yeah, that's pretty sound, meaning it's solid, I believe. Yeah. I think we'd only say it to about a person rather than a thing. But I don't know, yeah, I guess it's basically the same thing. Yeah, that would make sense. You meant questions. Okay, let me see which questions answered, please. You can. There's a load of messages popping up in the chat, so it's kind of hard to keep track of them all. So if I miss it, let me see, can I find you? I bought the, okay, so Mr. Chris, I bought the full version, good man. But I want to know if you think the BPR in ZBrush is nice, is a nice enough renderer or Keyshot 9. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people use the BPR renderer and then do like post processing in Photoshop, and you know, a lot of people use Keyshot from. I don't personally. I used when I started very early on. I did, but I had no idea what I was doing, so I wasn't using it to any great effect. I was very new and I didn't know anything about rendering, so I wasn't using Keyshot very well, and yeah, they were awful renders. But yeah, now I use Arnold, and I did used to use RenderMan, as Beshkin pointed out for me there. Fair play. So yeah, if you're asking are they good enough, yes, there are lots of people using them to great effect. So yeah, definitely. I don't personally, but it's not. It's just it's, I guess, a kind of workflow and preference thing. Like I use Arnold in work, so you know, I got a decent hang of it because of that. That's the only reason. It's yeah, it definitely works if you've got Photoshop too, especially, so you can, you know, you can layer up the different passes. I think because I know Rafa Grizzetti uses that kind of workflow for a lot of his work, and I think he has some videos on how he does that. I could be wrong. Let me know if that was all your questions. If you have any more there, just throw them in again. I'll try catch them. Dave Hans, sound is very Dublin. Yeah. His sound is actually probably, I don't know. They might use it. It is quite a Dublin thing in Ireland as opposed to everywhere in Ireland, but I know they do use it sometimes in other places. I'd love to know how many Irish people are actually in the chat. Oh, you want to know poly count? Well, okay. What does the KP mean? KP mean by the poly count? I'm not sure what you mean by that. What does the KP mean by the poly count? Am I missing something again? I like RenderMan, yeah. I use it for a while. I use Arnold just because it's native in. It's really good too. I've actually found both of them to be pretty much just as enjoyable and just as effective. They're different, but they work differently. But both are really good, and I only switched to Arnold just because it was native to Maya, and I was using it in work. RenderMan's coming to Blender. That's cool. Yeah, definitely. It's very, very good. I mean, it was developed by Pixar, right? It's gonna be good. Mr. Chris. Oh yeah, okay. When will you Dynamesh and merge all the different parts of this sculpt? Basically just when I'm happy with all the pieces and all the different elements are all both blocked in and in a general shape that I'm happy with. So that's something. Are we over time? Oh, we're over time. So I'm gonna scoot the arms out. I'll do a little bit of this for next time. I'll scoot the arms out and maybe Dynamesh the body, just the arms and the body, so I can use the extract method that I did for the hair to extract some clothes. I'll pretty much wait as long as I can before I Dynamesh the head, because I might want to, I want to leave it there for a while, let it simmer, and make sure I'm still happy with it before I commit to Dynameshing the whole piece together, because again I'll lose some freedom there to make changes once I do that. And I'll often actually just save a separate file. So this is Reverend Green. I'll save a Reverend Green Dynameshed and work on that file then. So if I do need to come back, if I want to change the head, I can cut the head off and just take all the subtools out of this and plop it in if need be. He's referring to the very top of the screen where it says poly count. Oh, the very top of the screen. I don't think I have that on mine though, do I? I got rid of mine. If you mean what is the poly count, I guess. If you mean what is the poly count. It's the amount of, so you can see here, I can highlight one. So that's a poly. So how many of those is in the mesh? And if you highlight your current subtool, you can see the amount of, you can see there polys, points, hidden polys. So you can see on that subtool, and then the total amount of polys. So at the moment, we're at 756,000, which is grand and light. Oh, that's no KP. Yeah, that's points, right? I think that's points. I actually got rid of that very early on. I think KP is points, I want to say. Shane is asking what material is this? It's nice for showing your shapes. It's just the ZBrush. I'll show you here. It's the ZBrush clay set. I'll try throw a link. I'll look it up and see can I throw a link in. I better get out of here because I'm going over time. But it's the ZBrush clay set. And yeah, they're really nice. Yeah, pretty much all. Good man, Beshkin. Beshkin's holding down the chat for me. Yeah, they're great. if I can find it quick, I'll throw it into the chat after. But yeah, so that's what we'll follow up with that next time. And yeah, thanks a lot for joining. It'll be, so again, 2 weeks from now on Wednesday, we can take it from here. All right. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining. It was great chatting to you, and I'll see